Greetings, African royals, wherever you are. Princes, princesses, kings and queens. Welcome again to another episode of W4W Book Reading series, Reading for Enlightenment and Awareness. We are currently reading from the book entitled The Handbook of Human Ownership, a manual for new tax farmers, and we are at Chapter 2. Remember, you can always download a free copy of this book at freedomainreader.com so you can read and follow along with us. With that said, grab your notebooks, highlighters and pens, and let's dive down into Chapter 2. Quick disclaimer. We might be reading from this book, but it don't mean that we endorse the book or we endorse the author. We just read for enlightenment and knowledge. Alright? Alright. Chapter 2. The 19th Century. The 19th century was a wildly creative time in the history of human livestock ownership. The amazing productivity unleashed by the privatization of labor and the partial socialization of wages created such prosperity that the necessity of the ruling classes itself was called into question. Furthermore, the increased education and economic initiatives of the working classes threatened the economic value of the managerial classes. The workers achieved almost complete literacy and possessed excellent work ethics, legal knowledge, and social networks, including the so-called friendly societies, which shielded the poor from destitution through any of life's many accidents. The supply of those able to manage thus increased, which drove down the price of management, which was not exactly welcomed by the existing capitalists. The traditional solution to increase competition from the poor was to ban books and education, inflict religious guilt about materialism, or start a war, none of which were politically or economically advantageous at the time. Openly banning education for the children of the poor would have reintroduced the quote-unquote OMG, I'm a total slave demotivation problem. Religious belief was waning, while war would have destroyed all the new capital that the ruling and entrepreneurial classes were enjoying. In a brilliant stroke, the ruling classes and the church conspired to create a false educational quote-unquote emergency. In conjunction with a large number of resentful and underperforming teachers, public school education was introduced with the stated goal of improving the skills, abilities, and intelligence of the poor. Naturally, the true goal was the exact opposite. Rather than focusing on practical, economic, and entrepreneurial knowledge, government schools quickly shifted the educational focus towards patriotic history, rote memorization and recitation, Latin and Greek, and an endless plethora of other useless and boring trivia. This was the sports equivalent of forcing your competition to take naps instead of training, resulting in a truly delightful absence of competition for medals. Government schools created dull, resentful drones only fit for taking orders, so the threat to the managerial class was averted. And in brackets, all this started in Prussia, which was medieval, mystical, and militaristic, which should have been something of a clue for everyone, but again, thought hurts, apparently. One of the four pillars of the human farm, the church, faced mounting challenges in the 19th century as the increased secularism of the Industrial Revolution and the growth in the empirical value of the scientific method undermined the superstitious terrors of the Middle Ages. Let that soak in. Let's continue. Sensing that the power of their God was on the decline, the clergy began casting about for a new home. Their expertise was in sophistic ethics, remember, rather than political power. And so they came up with a wonderful idea that allowed them to bring their brilliant historical lies into politics, but without having to enter into the sordid knuckle fights of base democratic electioneering. In a word, socialism. Socialism, or communism as it is sometimes called, is merely a secular religion where the state becomes a god. It has its good and evil, its creation myths, its eventual heaven where the state withers away, its ruling class of ethical liars, and so on. Priest as Plato. You get the picture? That book is funny. That's true. That book is funny. Really funny. Let's continue. Suddenly, instead of heaven existing in the afterlife, it was promised in this life as soon as government programs succeeded. In bracket they have, the afterlife is far more likely. I'm not telling the truth, you know. Who I believe. The book here. Anyway, the new socialist clergy promised an end to poverty, injustice, illiteracy, shortness, baldness, any word they could get their grubby hands on. And of course, anyone who disagreed with these fantasies was immediately portrayed as pro-poverty, injustice, illiteracy, etc. Of course, just as the moral guilt of religion can never create virtue, government programs can never create paradise. And so a perpetual motion machine of social control was started, where the supposed quote-unquote solutions just created more of the same problems. So, we've reached the end of today's chapter. Thanks for listening. And again, if you find this session educational and informative, please subscribe and join us as we continue reading towards the global awakening and enlightenment of our people. And a quick disclaimer here, not because we read a book here means that we are in agreement with the philosophies of the author or the context of the book. We are simply reading to become more knowledgeable about stuff we didn't know about but should. If it exists, then why shouldn't we know that it do? Just simple that. Give thanks again and see you in the next episode. Remember, like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to drop your analysis down below in the comment section if you read the book already, or if you're just reading the book with us. Your comments are welcome. Okay? Give thanks.